All right, good evening. Thank you for joining our November NPU-Y general body meeting. This evening we have our elections today, so please bear with us as this meeting may be slightly longer than our traditional meeting, which usually runs till 9 p.m. So as we move forward, if you do have more than one member in your same Zoom account, or if you're on the phone with anybody additional, please make sure that you do list them in the chat. Just a few housekeeping rules. Please stay muted. If you'd like to speak, use the raise hand reaction so that way we can be called to the floor. If you're on the phone, that is *9 to raise your hand or *6 to mute and unmute yourself. You may also place information in the chat or use the nonverbal reactions. First up is our approval of the minutes. On your screen, you will see the minutes from last month, October. Were there any corrections to the minutes? All right, as I hear none, I move to motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Are there any in opposition to the agenda, the minutes? All right, as I hear none, I have the minutes approved. Let's switch over to the agenda real quick. And on the screen, you will see your agenda. We have one amendment, which is the bylaws amendment for our 2024 bylaws. This was recommendation from DCP that we will discuss. All other items are as followed from the original final draft from DCP. I motion to approve the amended agenda. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair, Gloria.
Are there any in opposition to the amended agenda? All right, as I hear none, we will go ahead and approve the agenda. First on our agenda item is going to be our reports from our city departments. I please ask that you keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. As you heard, we do have a long meeting this evening, so we want to make sure that we'll be able to get to them and everybody can get out early enough. Any questions, if you are able to place them in the chat, or if we can get you in direct contact, we can do that as well. And any city departments, make sure that your information is in our chat. First, I call up Major Ricker. You have the floor.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Just go through the crime from October real quick compared to September, and then I want to touch on a couple cases briefly just to bring everybody up to date. October, 0 homicides compared to 0 in September. Aggravated assaults, 8 compared to 8 in September. 3 of those were domestic violence, and 3 resulted in arrests. Robberies, 1 compared to 1 in September. Burglaries, 3 compared to 6 in September. Auto theft, 12 compared to 6 in September. 7 of those 12 were Kia or Handouts. Larceny from auto, 6 compared to 7 in September. Larceny non-auto, 14 compared to 7 in September. Brings us to a total of 44 compared to 35 in September. Briefly, the robbery I mentioned, that was at 175 Lakewood Way. An ex-employee of Lakewood Studios arrived and basically held up the employer for their paycheck. An off-duty officer who was working out there on the scene saw what was going on, intervened, and then eventually we were able to get that person in custody and recover a firearm that was stolen out of Atlanta. Going back a little ways, a couple incidents that occurred in September, but the arrest took place last month. So September 12th, there was a shooting at 1297 Jonesboro Road. That's kind of right where Jonesboro and McDonough come in together. Person was shot during an attempted robbery. We were able to figure out who that person was and successfully executed an arrest warrant on Cheshire Bridge for the subject on October 13. Secondly, September 11th, there was a dispute at 1519 Prior Road. That's the salon that's right there, kind of at Arthur Langford. There's about 3 little businesses right there. So somebody was upset on not getting their eyelashes done. So the person pulled a firearm and then subsequently beat up the employee and salon owner. So that person was also taken in custody on October 25th. A couple other incidents in and around the area, 1634 Lakewood, which I know comes up quite a bit. There was some occupants out smoking marijuana in the car that resulted in 2 arrests and the recovery of morphine, cocaine, marijuana, and MDMA. November 1st at 1683 Lakewood, we had a subject die of a gunshot wound. That is still under investigation with the district attorney's office and our homicide unit in reference to whether it was a justified shooting or not. November 2nd at 1660 Jonesboro Road, we responded to a shots fired call. When we arrived, we located an overturned vehicle and a 59-year-old male that was shot in the shoulder. The business at 1660 provided video to us. The officers immediately knew who the subject was that committed the shooting and was able to track down and locate them just a couple blocks away and take them into custody. That was a 27-year-old male, and he was located at another shopping center over at the Shell at Lakewood and Shadydale. November 18th, canvassing over near 1757 Richmond for burglary suspects. We were able to find another person who was actually wanted for a different burglary out of Hateville. So that person was taken in custody. And something I don't think got too much airplay, but on October 20th, our crime suppression unit was assisting the school police during their football games. At the end of the game, our officers noticed a juvenile male, get dropped off in a vehicle carrying a rifle. That was on the Clare Drive side of the Lakewood Stadium. Officers were able to take that person into custody after a foot pursuit. So we don't know what that juvenile was about to do, but thankfully we were able to stop that before it happened. So those are just a few of the things that have gone on in the past little while over in the NPU-Y area.
Thank you. I'm going to open the floor to any questions for Major Ricker. Omar Ali, you have your hand raised. You have the floor.
Major Ricker, one of our tenants had a break-in last night, EW Fresh. It took the police about 3 hours to respond today to show up. We just want to make sure that the building get the attentiveness that it needs. We have quite a significant amount of people that are in and out of the building up to 9 o'clock at night. So we just want to make sure that we pay careful attention to anyone trying to break in the building, especially during the holiday time.
Well, and that goes to another thing that I need to cover. So obviously these next few months are problematic across all of Atlanta in reference to burglaries, not just to businesses, but in reference to homes. And they're seeking, unfortunately, they're seeking Christmas gifts. It happens. It happened all of last year. It's going to happen again this year, no matter what. So everybody, please don't. The best anybody can do, don't show what you're purchasing before you walk in your home. Don't leave large boxes of what you did purchase outside your home. And if you're using Amazon and it's a significant item, I suggest using one of their drop boxes instead of just leaving it on the doorstep. But I understand your concern about a burglary and the amount of time it took to respond. We unfortunately still have a significant shortage. A quarter of our police department does not exist. And there are only so many people for the calls that responded. 1,100 calls were responded to from 911 last week, and that's an average of what we see. So we need to do better, but I want everybody to be aware of that.
Okay. It was pretty alarming because it's a commercial building and we got cameras everywhere, but they still took a rock, broke the window, climbed in the window, but hopefully they'll be caught.
Was there good video of the subject that you could
Our
Yeah,
identify?
tech team is
so
gonna,
hey, Omar,
Oh.
thank you for stepping in. I was a little late hopping on to the call. So yes, officer, it was our business, EB Fresh Inside. So we are looking at the camera footage. One of the things I did want to mention was that alarming rate of the response time. So it took us about 5 hours to get a police report. So I understand that they're short staffed. I get that. But when I called 911, they kept giving me the runaround. I was looped to one department. I called Lakewood Heights precinct, called zone 3, and nothing from anyone. I was even giving the communications number, and they placed me on hold for quite a while. So it took about 4 hours to finally get an officer to the location. And then once the officer arrived, she mentioned that someone else, another officer, borrowed her fingerprint kit. So she didn't even really come prepared. So that's just a thing that I really, especially as we are moving into this season, this holiday season, I want to make sure that everyone is prepared, especially for what's to come. So we are going to send over the, I do have all our information. I'm going to send over the footage to the officer as well from the cameras.
Okay, well, send them to me. My email is in the chat. I have a burglary officer that's assigned to the zone that does
Okay.
a very good job of locating people. So,
thank
Awesome.
you,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. Got you. Thank you.
Thank you. And please remember, when you have your hand raised, to wait till it is called to the floor. I understand that it was overlapping on the same information. So next up is Kimberly Brooks. You have the floor.
Madam Chair, you may have overlooked me.
I apologize. Gloria, were next, and then Kimberly was after you. My apologies. Kimberly Brooks.
No worries.
Thank
Just
you.
real quickly, Major Ricker, is there any way that the community can have like direct contact with the beat officer? Because we have a beat officer each shift. Is that correct? And the thrust of that whole concept is that they serve that beat. Is that not correct? And is there any, based on just what you heard?
so that's yes and no, as far as an answer goes. I wish I could be more straightforward, but no, we do not want officers taking phone calls, that are not dispatched. That becomes a safety issue that we can't monitor. Is there a beat officer assigned to particular areas? So NPU-Y has 2 separate beats in it, 305 and 307. Yes, normally an officer is the same, but that changes when that officer's off for a whole host of different reasons.
Absolutely. But is there any like kind of response to the desperation that we just heard? I mean, it seemed kind of compelling that as she annotated the length that time, is it some priority? And
So yes. So in reference to burglaries, unless it's in progress, it is not a high priority as crimes against people. So it's gonna sit below that if it's already occurred.
Good. Lastly, Madam Chair, we got an LRB applicant on would you just speak to the ordinance and your interpretation of where that ordinance stands in terms of integrating of cameras, please?
You talking about the new city ordinance?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay,
Just
so
1 or
there
2
was
minutes.
there was some stipulations that were in there as far as the next steps on when it will be implemented. It certainly looks to me that requires a conversation next month in December. And then hopefully they'll have a plan going forward on what it actually looks like as far as requirements for all of these gas stations to have some sort of cameras that points to each particular gas pump that are integrated with our video integration center.
So the ordinance we'll leave it in, we'll put it in the chat later, but the ordinance has passed. It is just a question.
The ordinance passed in August, and then there's a next step that the CFO has to meet with other members on, the finalization of what it looks like when it actually can be started realistically.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, next is Kimberly Brooks. You have the floor.
Thank you. I do apologize. I'm having some issues with my camera, but I do have a 3 questions specifically as an officer. I don't know the Ricker. So we're gonna know 3 months ago. I listened to your report that was given. I didn't hear any reports on the villages at Carver. That's number one. Did you not have any reports here because there was an incident of about 24 officers? I'm gonna email you all while I'm on the phone now so that I won't forget, of a discrepancy or issue that was 2 doors down from me, for which I had a verbal altercation with the police officer. The second concern is going to be the reports that are, I'm looking at the bylaws here in regards to the reports that are given. I asked for a report or some documentation or data that was stating that the villages at Carver had about the crime that was occurring, that was happening here. I just want to know, how was that documented? Where can I find the documentation and where it's sent so I could figure out how it's captured during this meeting, to better get a sense of how these things are reported. And last but not least, I was in a meeting with the Integral Property Management Group, and the person that spoke for the department last week said that it was the property management that was requesting police to visit the property. And in that meeting, the property management stated that the police department had not been to any of their meetings in months. That meeting was recorded. So I'm experiencing a lot of inconsistencies with the information that's being provided here, with the information that I see and what's also being reported. Do you have any questions or comments in regards to that?
Okay, let me try to remember each one there. So as far as a report specifically just on villages of Carver, we don't dissect the neighborhoods, you know, when we're reporting out on the NPUs.
No, I mean the entire
we've never
report.
done that.
No, the entire report, because the report that you just gave, you gave the addresses, and I listened to those addresses, and none of those were for here. So I want to know the report that is submitted for this shared file city meeting. So maybe she's sharing that file, because I want to see what's actually going out from this committee, because I've expressed some concerns of over policing here, and I want to see how those concerns are being captured in this meeting, because I have not had the opportunity to follow up, but no one has followed up with me either. And I have some inconsistencies with the police department actually meeting with the property management. So I wanted to hear more about, I heard from the last meeting that it was the property management that requested a heavy police force, and they have not satisfied the requirements of 3 officers out here for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. They only have 1 courtesy officer out here, and they don't have the training. And to what Omar, I think whoever was speaking, I had a young individual that's homeless. He was sitting in the middle of the street yesterday. So I sat out with him because he wanted to get hit by a car, to stop him from getting hit by a car. So we waved down State Patrol. I sat with State Patrol, with Cobb County first for about 45 minutes. State Patrol for about 20 minutes, all while I'm calling 911. No one ever picked up the phone. I happened to flag down the Grady unit that I was able to get someone to send the unit out here to help this gentleman and transport him to the hospital. So these are just some concerns, and I just really want to know how this has been reported and captured so that I could, I guess, address this issue on a larger scale, if that makes sense.
Okay, so I'm following some of it. So you're saying that the integral group does not have good communication with the police department. And I can say in some of that case, that's absolutely correct. So my captains met with the group on several occasions out there. I went out and met with them as well to try to get a routine conversation going back and forth. It led to the chief of police going out and meeting with the group as well. And unfortunately, we do not have, we're not in the space that we should be between the villages of Carver and the Atlanta Police Department, and some of the issues that have gone on over there, as well as some repairs that were necessary over there for the community. We still have an issue with cars being stolen. Most of this is being done by juveniles. So yes, we still have problems over there. As far as the last part about not getting through to 911, I don't have a good answer for you there. I'll say this: if you can email me the time that you called, I can get with them and try to have a representative contact you to speak about the problem that you had trying to get through to them. And maybe they can provide an answer of why nobody was answering.
Oh, sorry. There was a warrant. There was a police officer dispatched to 2 doors down from here. I didn't hear that in your report. you don't have a report of a warrant being dispatched for someone that was actually taken into custody, and a car was towed right back here in my backyard at 204 Maury Avenue. That's going to be apartment 123. You don't
So
have that in your.
I apologize to hold this up. However, these are specific one spot instances, and I know that I've reached out to you, Kimberly, so that we can get offline to have some of this information worked out with our police officers and try to get a meeting set up. So I think that if we want to keep that conversation, just to keep on time here, if we can set up something where we have our either Major Ricker or some of our other sergeants and officers on call with yourself and then the other members in the community, that might be best for the sake of time during our meeting.
Right, I understand. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss his report and that being documented, but maybe I did miss it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I did also add the minutes to the agenda, or sorry, to the chat, which is for last month. So you can see how the report is updated for our minutes. Hopefully this will give you some information as to how we are receiving that information. If there's anything specific, we can always send emails out to Major Ricker or anybody else on his staff so we can get direct reports about certain instances.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Do we have any other hands for Major Ricker and our safety officers? Kimberly, you have your hand raised again, or is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Major Ricker. I do appreciate you being on the call.
Thank you. Everybody have a great night.
My
and a happy
pleasure.
Thanksgiving.
Gloria Hawkins, when would you like to follow up with your safety reports as Major Ricker is still on the call?
No, Madam Chair, Major Ricker and I spoke at length, and he covered all of what I thought the community would find relevant and compelling. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Next we have is Chief Cottrell with Atlanta Fire Rescue Battalion. You have the floor.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Just with the Atlanta Fire Rescue, just wanted to remind everybody about some safety issues for the holidays, about making sure that you're staying diligent when you're cooking. It sounds kind of silly, but a lot of folks will put something on and then leave to go to the store. And we've had several fires over the years with that, where someone leaves stuff unattended. And also the season's changing; it's getting cooler outside. I know my wife's turned the heat on at our house, so and just be mindful of all the safety rules that go along with space heaters and getting your heating going. So that's all that we have from the fire department. Other than our standard smoke alarms are available and car seats are available if anyone needs them. And I'll take any questions that anyone has.
Thank you. Any questions for our fire and rescue? All right, as I see no hands raised, thank you so much for joining. Have a great night.
Great night. Thank you.
I did not see any other names in our chat for our city departments. However, I do know we have a couple other on here. Are there any that would like to speak to the general body?
Good evening, Officer Lawrence, for the Department of Public Works. Just a couple of things this evening. With Thanksgiving coming up this week, we will have 1 day delay of service. So our crews will be working through Saturday. So put your containers out as usual, and we'll be by to get them. We'll just be a day behind working through Saturday. This is also the week for yard trimming collection. Put those out at the curb as well during your collection day. If it's under 20 or more bags or a small pile, if it's over 20 bags or a large pile, that has to be scheduled through 311. It will not be collected during the regular collection bi-weekly collection schedule. If it's over that amount, it has to be scheduled by going through 311. I know you got a lot going, so I just want to throw those couple things out this evening. I'm not going to hold you guys long. I'll put my contact information in chat and stand by for any questions or concerns.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Officer Lawrence?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
Madam Officer Lawrence, hi, good evening. When you say small piles of limbs, my couple neighbors are saying they're not picking up their limbs or their fallen debris. Is there are those to be bagged, which seems a little bit tough with limbs that will poke through? What's the standard there?
Yeah, so they can still be placed in the bag. Sometimes it's just easier for the crews, because I've noticed when some other limbs are put out, they're just all over the place. But if they're stacked neatly and they haven't been collected, just put in a request and they'll come by and they'll pick it up if it's been missed. And if it's something that's going on consistently, we'll make sure that it's put on the list so they'll know going by that they are to collect them going forward. It just depends on how it's placed out. So long as it's stacked neatly and they should get it. But if it's not, shoot me an email, but also put in a request so we can know that and it's given to the supervisors of those crews.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other hands raised for questions for Officer Lawrence? All right, as I see none, thank you so much.
Have a good evening. Happy Thanksgiving for those that I won't see.
Happy holidays. All right, as I see no other our city departments, we will move on to our elected officials. Are there any elected officials or elected official representatives on the call that are not listed? All right, as I see none, we will move on to our next portion, which is our committee reports. Our committees, as they go through the report, please hold your questions till the end so that way we can ask them all at once. You may also get their email address off of our agenda if you'd like to contact them directly. Committee chairs, please limit your reports to 2 minutes or less. First up we have is our zoning and land use and code enforcement, Bob Morris and Jacob Mills.
I'm going to work on the last part of the 2 minutes, Madam Chairman. The zoning committee has a lot of stuff going on. There are a lot of things to update you on. I'm not going to try to go into those tonight unless Jacob wants to briefly talk about a couple of them in Chosewood. But we are having a zoning committee meeting next Wednesday night, 7 p.m. You're all welcome to come to that.
Thank you. And Jacob Mills, do you have anything to add?
I apologize, guys. Sorry, I'm juggling multiple phone calls here. There is a lot going on. I kind of missed. I had it on mute there for Bob. I apologize. But there is quite a bit going on. And for the sake of time for this meeting, I would recommend that anybody that has any questions, comments, or concerns regarding any of these new developments, please come to the meeting so that we can hash them out there. We're actually starting to get some attendance now from some of the developers at the committee meeting as well. So if something going on and you have specific questions, we might be able to get developers to show up to the meeting and answer those for you.
Thank you so much. Next we have is our Park, Beltline, and Environments. That is Rebecca Robinson. You have the floor.
I have no updates at this time, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our Lakewood Oversight or Lakewood Finance.
Madam Chair, I do not see any from that group, either Yolanda Cameron or Nikki Garcia or Kanika Greenlee.
Neither do I. We will move to our Special Projects Ad Hoc Committee. Aaliyah Lofton.
I have nothing new to report.
All right, thank you. And last would be our APAB report.
Madam Chair, APAB again meets the third Saturday. We just met this past weekend. We're undergoing a massive review of our bylaws. I think that our bylaws at some point were in derogation of the city ordinance, which only allowed for 25 voting members. We're also concurrent with that. We're not having elections this year until January, in part because in November, we would have elections only to have in January the NPUs to send a different delegate or an alternate. So what I can tell you is we've got one of the best things I can tell you is the Transportation Committee, of which I'm a member, has submitted a resolution that deals with the impediment that's created at the train tracks. It's not just our community, that Norfolk Sutherland loops the city essentially. And I believe just 2 or 3 days ago, there was an enormous CSX in Norfolk, derailment that caused a substantial fire up in the northwestern corridor. But essentially the resolution deals with how do we enforce a more reasonable standard at those locations. Because it's interstate commerce, the limits are there, but the city seems to have some power that's rooted in the location itself. And that's what's being visited. And also, I think there's legislation afoot at council. But APAP concurrently has submitted its own resolution. Thanks.
Wonderful. Look forward to hearing about the resolution. All right. So as we have no other committees to report, do we have any questions for our committees? Right, I see no hand raised. Thank you so much for all the work that my committee chairs do and all of the members that assist them. Moving on to our next matter will be voting. We will go towards our first voting matter, which is the BP at Food Mart. This is an LRB application that was deferred from last month to go to the neighborhood voluntarily by the representative. So I hand over the floor to Ms. Farkas.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm going to make this as fast as possible because I have a lot to say. Yes, we deferred last month at the request of the Lakewood neighborhood so that we could go and meet with them. And we did that. And that meeting did not go well at all. I was personally attacked and beat up verbally for not having come back to the neighborhood to let them know that the current tenant that is at this location had trouble getting the cameras to connect to APD. Their system wouldn't do it. I apologize. I didn't know that I needed to come back and do that. And they voted to not support us. I would like to also note that before we even got to the meeting, when they were going through the police crime information things, Gloria asked the police officer, why can't they just shut down the gas stations? And his response was basically, you have to have a reason to. So she was already set on not wanting this station there. So then when it did come our turn, all we talked about was the camera system. This new ordinance is in the process. It has not been enacted yet, so we don't know the requirements. I've been in communication with Sergeant Thompson multiple times and the officer that's in charge of the camera system to find out what the requirements as far as equipment and things like that will be. And the answer was they don't know yet. He doesn't expect the ordinance to go into effect until 2025. And my point was that we're caught between a rock and a hard place in not having current equipment, needing to buy something new, but we don't know what we need. But even after the meeting, and we were voted not to be supported, I received a telephone call on Thursday from Omar Ali. He asked me, could we have a conversation? I said, yes, absolutely, we can have a conversation. He proceeded to tell me a lot of things, and I was completely shocked by what he said. One of the things that he said was that these people don't understand the plight of the Black community, and we don't want them here. He also said, they say they're a new owner, but they really aren't. They're just pretending to be a new owner. I explained to him that, yes, this person that is applying now has nothing to do with Gas Express or the current tenant. He's a complete new applicant. They're not partners. They're not associated. He also stated that we don't like the element that these people bring to our neighborhood. I asked what element that was. He said crime and drugs, loitering and drugs. He also said, you don't know who you're talking to. And he said,
Farkas, that is time. Additionally, I would like to remind everybody that this is an application about an LRB, and to not voice your concerns about particular individuals. This is about the application and about the location. I'm going to open the floor to our neighborhood prior to opening questions for the community of NPU-Y. First up is, do we have a representative from from Lakewood Heights Community Association to express how the meeting and the consensus from the community went?
Yeah, Zach Murray, Chair, Lakewood Heights Community Association. The vote, as Ms. Farkas said, was against the application. I do want to add, though, that I would hope that business members of this community would not attempt to speak for the entire community. It sounds like what occurred was shameful behavior to attempt to, in my opinion, bully the business. We value all the business members in our community, and this gas station is actually one of the safer locations and one of the cleaner locations. So I'd really request that business members of our community not attempt to act as shadow
Zach,
leaders
that's
of
not
the
appropriate
association.
within, Zach, I call order. That's not appropriate to request in the meeting of NPU-Y. You may contact these individuals separately if you wish that they need to.
Bylaw
The
arrangement,
community.
bylaws.
It's not an appropriate manner of the meeting. It's not business, it's not following a business order, a parliamentary order for what is on hand. You're asking a request based on your community's proper handling, not on parliamentary orders.
That seems arbitrary, but sure.
So the consensus of the community was based on the camera system only, Zach and Murray?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Gloria, you may have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair. Absolutely not. And it's just to hear the characterization of this, essentially the comment to Ms. Farkas was 18 months ago that she is what I would call the expediter for 100 Lakewood Way, meaning repeatedly, if there was a change of applicant license or licensee, Ms. Farkas has been the representative. Roughly 18 to 24 months ago, there was a conditional approval from Lakewood. I believe NPU-Z, which is the adjacent community within 300 feet, defers to Lakewood and the NPU. There was a conditional approval. That approval was based on integration of the camera system at that location with APD's VIC system, meaning real-time APD. That did not occur. What I said to what was said to Ms. Farkas, it seems in good faith, if the condition was not met, that somewhere, she didn't have to, it's called good faith, somewhere along the continuum, she would have gotten back and said, listen, I want to go on your agenda to explain that we're working in good faith. We've not been able to successfully integrate. Instead, now we're at a new applicant only to learn that that did not happen and it did not set well. Again, that was the thrust of it. I think to characterize it anything other is really, it's not quite accurate. So that's the essence of it. I did say, and I think the community says, we only have 1,200 residents. Why do we need 4 24/7 convenience stores that are, if Madam Chair, if you would post a copy of that ordinance, it lists a litany of reasons as to why the camera system is needed. And it all roots to the quality of life in these communities, from crime to, but again, if you would place in the chat or even share with the group, APD and the authors of the drafters of this legislation outline why this is a necessity. Again, we're still now at the new applicant. What Major Ricker said is that this ordinance has passed. Integration is to happen, that they're giving it roughly a 60-day window to figure out how to enforce it. That is my understanding. So there you are. If you could post it, it lists a litany of reasons why cameras are absolutely necessary. Again, it was not, again, it's a ratio of community. If you weigh that up against what the community is experiencing emanating out of these locations. And folks, let me just tell you, we have been successful through APD and their sweeps of keeping these liquor license applicants at bay because they're not controlling the premises, period. That is what LRB, the board, has decided. I would say at 1634, 1683. We did not push back against Little Bear. There you are, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next, we will continue on with questions from the community. First we have is Omar Ali. Please keep your comments, sorry, Omar, before I give you the floor, please keep your comments limited to 2 minutes so that we can get through this quickly. And that is for all members, both applicants and commenters. Omar Ali, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my call in regards to this particular matter was mischaracterized. I said that we did not want these gas stations coming to the community and not understanding the plight of the community. I asked if the owner of the gas station would be more than willing to just come to the NPU to have a conversation so that we can kind of all understand and get on the same page. We want nothing more than a business to thrive in the community, but it's kind of very difficult to do that if the owner of one said business is not willing to communicate and willing to engage in the community. And so my attempt was to get everyone on the same page so that the community is happy and so that the business owner is happy too. I am disappointed that the community, I'm disappointed that the business owner is not willing to come and meet with the community so that we can kind of discuss what's going on. But I just wanted to clear the air of the mischaracterization of the conversation, grossly mischaracterized. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next we have, Dana, I'm gonna save you for just a little bit longer, get a couple questions from our community. Kimberly Brooks, you have the floor.
Actually, I'm looking at the bylaws here. I have an integrity question. What I really would like to know, because I was on the meeting with this individual as they discussed the criteria for them to open the business, but I am alarmingly concerned about how this matter is being handled. From us as a community, I don't represent the community. I just don't like what I'm hearing. And also how the business owner is not feeling, I guess, welcome. Not to say that she should or shouldn't, but I live in this community, so I would like to, I guess, ask you, when it comes to the decision-making process of how we are going to decide whether the cameras or whether the private conversations on the side or whether the address individuals are coming up, that this process be have a higher level of integrity that we can trace, because I don't see it here. I'll just be honest with you, because I don't know if the camera system is important. I don't know if it's unimportant. I live in the area and familiar with that BP. I don't have a problem with it. But I do see where the camera issues is an issue. But I'm just trying to understand how this process from an integrity standpoint for the business and the community is being executed by this body, because it's a lot of going back and forth here. So could you help me with that? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, your audio is going a little in and out. So hopefully I can get most of what you said. The way that an LRB is handled is that they are sent to the NPU level. And we do normally ask that they speak with the community first, just to get the members of the society of the neighborhood that they are actually going to be doing business in, to have some more weight into their decision of what NPU wants to do, as most of the members in our NPU meetings are not specific to one neighborhood. That may be affected more greatly by an LRB or any other voting matters. Ms. Farkas did allow us to defer last month voluntarily so that they could go to Lakewood Heights and speak with the neighborhood first. The major issue that was in the prior application, which was a different business owner for the same location, was that there was a conditional approval for the LRB, which was to have the integration of a camera system, which was a new system that APB had out for about 2 years, I believe. So this new integration that we have requested is going to be on a new ordinance that is actually going to be a requirement by this APB and not as a voluntary, but it will not come out until 2025. So the question of whether or not there will be that voluntary integration until it is required has been raised. So as that goes through the neighborhoods level, which they did not, from my understanding, they did not approve the support of the applicant. So it comes back to the NPU level before it goes to the actual liquor review license or board. I hope I answered your question clearly enough. If you have any additional information that you need on it, if you want to throw it in the chat, we can clarify anything like that. Troy, Troy Nunley, you have the floor.
Yeah, I want to add to your comments. One thing to note is that the applicant does not have to go to the community, but we are often said as a courtesy For LRBs, they don't have to, they can just report just directly to the NPU-Y municipal code. But since it's directly affect the community, we recommend to the applicant to attend those meetings. The second thing is the LRB is a little bit different than ZRB and BZA, where in order for us to deny the LRB, it has to break some type of municipal code, and the neighborhood will have to show that. As Gloria mentioned, what we've done in the past is prove to the LRB that it breaks the municipal code, unable to maintain the premises. So in order to do that, we have to, as an NPU, if we were to deny this, we will have to do research on what crimes has occurred to prove that they're unable to maintain the premises or violate some other municipal code that disallow the LRB license. Typically it goes to the LRB, and this is my last thing, I know I'm a little bit over time. Typically it goes to the LRB panel, and then they make a recommendation to the mayor's office. So the LRB doesn't make the final decision, the group that makes the vote does not make the final decision, but the mayor's office does, and the mayor office can essentially veto it, their recommendation, and just do what they want to do. So oftentimes in the past, we've seen that the mayor's lawyers come to our neighborhood to discuss with us the issues around LRBs with our applicants. So that's that. I wanted to give the historical context of that.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Dana Farkas, you will have the floor, and then hopefully we will motion to a vote.
Thank you. They did not ask my applicant one question during the meeting. And Mr. Ali told me that the neighborhood had met prior to our appearance and had decided to vote against it before we even showed up. So y'all asked us to defer to go meet and talk to the neighborhood. We did that. And when we got there, they didn't want to talk to my applicant. They just wanted to fuss at me for not coming back, and had already voted prior to our appearance. So I don't feel like it was a fair and impartial hearing, because they never asked one question of my client, and then they voted prior to our appearance. And they don't have a reason, and it's not a new station coming in like some people keep saying. We don't need a new gas station. It's not new. It's been there for years. It's been licensed. It's not a new location. It's just a change of the applicant. That's all.
Thank you. Gloria Hawkins, you have the floor.
Yes, ma'am. Just wanted to quickly say, because Ms. Farkas represents the applicant, she's the expediter / counsel, it's always inappropriate for us to ask that the applicant him or herself speak. It is generally offered up. Well, she's shaking her head. I'm a lawyer. I can tell you never ask that. You cannot ask that client to incriminate themselves in any way. Generally, what has happened at the community meetings, or even at this level, the applicant offers up a plan of what their vision is, ask us what we might like, et cetera, et cetera. So it's absolutely, I would push back heavily against us not asking him any questions, because again, she was the arbiter of she was the spokesperson. And I think many of us felt if he didn't want to speak, we shouldn't ask him to speak. And that was exactly why that question was never raised.
Thank you. So just to go back to some questions for our applicant, we had spoke last meeting briefly about the installation of the camera system. Dana Farkas and I have emailed since then in order to continue on with the conversation, and was mentioned that the applicant is planning to integrate to the camera system. They are working on other locations right now. Dana, is that still the plan to have this integrated within 60 to 90 days?
Yes, the guy's still working on the DeKalb County stores, and then he's moving to the Atlanta stores. And so the person that is working on that told me they should be able to get it done. He said 30 days, but I don't think 30 days is reasonable. I think 60 to 90 days they will get to the Atlanta stores, because the DeKalb County ones are taking up so much time. But yes, it is in the process.
Thank you. And then lastly, about safety there, we mentioned during our last meeting that there was a ATM that was stolen from inside of the gas station during daylight. Are there any additional safety measures that have been taking place so that we can ensure the safety of not only the people that are working there, but also those that do wish to stop there to use the business?
I'm going to ask my client to please answer that question. And he's here. Aman, can you please address your safety?
Hello, yes. So currently we have the cameras inside the stores and we are monitoring everything. And secondly, for me, it is very important for the safety of my community. And as Dana said, we are currently working on the DeKalb County stores. So it's taking a lot of time to go and do the work as per the ordinance. That's the major reasons. If we get some ordinance on this side, we can work on it because it takes a lot of time. And we want the security. We want the security of our community definitely. And going ahead, whenever we get an opportunity, once we are done with this, we are gonna move to the Atlanta stores.
Thank you so much. And just to remind everybody, if somebody does choose to motion, that there can be conditions on our motion for approval, which would be similar to what was motioned on the prior application a year ago, and that was for condition of integration of the camera system. So you are able to add any additional information such as that for safety measures. Rebecca Robinson, I open the floor.
Yes, motion to approve contingent on video camera system integration with APD.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, let me go ahead and launch the poll. As a reminder for voting, we do recognize any residential constituents that are 18 years or older with a place of residency within the NPU boundaries, and business constituents. So they're allowed one representative per business within the NPU designated area. NPU business owners are only allowed one vote if they also live in the community, so they do not get 2 votes. Troy Nunley, you have the floor before we launch the poll.
Could you repeat the motion? I'm sorry.
Yes. Yep. When I launch, give me one moment.
Contingent on video integration.
So the motion on the floor is to approve the applicant contingent on integration with APD for the video system.
Madam Chair, Bob has his hand raised.
Bob, you have the floor.
It's actually Suzanne.
Hi, I just wanted to get clarification. Is it not the NPU's tradition that we do not override our communities? We reflect what they vote on. They go back and decide whatever they have to decide.
So we do traditionally like to voice the same concern as the neighborhood. However, everybody does have one vote, and we do allow for the community to vote as they choose, whether that's at a community level or an NPU level. With the LRBs being more of a legal matter, it does become difficult when there is not substantial information for denial on a community level, a neighborhood basis. There would have to be some sort of claim based on legality. Troy, you have the floor. Brandon Lee.
My apologies. I need to lower my hand.
Okay. All right, let me go ahead and launch the poll. Again, this is a vote to approve the liquor license based on the contingency of integration to the camera system.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the poll.
It should pop up on your screen. If you do not see the poll, go ahead and put your vote in the chat. That is in addition to if you have more than one person on your call, just make sure you put your name and your vote. Gina Farkas, you have the floor while the poll is still open.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I absolutely will come back and let you know how the camera system is progressing. I absolutely will do that now that I know that that's very important to y'all. So as soon as I get an update on when it can start, I'll let you know. I'll let you know when it's done and how it's working and everything. I absolutely promise that.
Thank
However you want me to do it, an email or come back to the meeting or whatever you think is best.
Thank you so much. Are there any other votes that are missing or that are not in the poll that we would like to place in the chat? Please do so now so we can close our poll. And Gloria Hawkins, when you are co-host, you are unable to vote. Please place your vote in the chat as well. I do have a comment in our chat, which is if you are on a mobile phone, the poll is under the More tab on the far right.
Madam Chair, I'm trying to put mine in now.
All right, give it just a couple more seconds and we'll close out the vote. All right, I'm closing the poll. So our polling results, we have 13 yes, 11 no, and 4 abstention, as one of those abstentions was redacted and placed into the chat. In the chat, we have 1 yes and 4 no's. The motion carries as no for approval, so the motion was to deny, would carry to deny the applicant.
Could you repeat that? I thought you said 13 yeses, 11 nos.
That is in our poll. However, there were additional votes in our chat, which took it to 14 yes, 15 no's, and 4 abstentions.
Oh, I thought you said, okay.
And are we verifying eligible voters via that poll, Nicole?
We will after the meeting. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that at this time. But we will go through and verify these eligible votes. So Dana Farkas, unfortunately, at this time, the motion was to deny the application. Even though the motion was to deny the vote was to deny the motion to approve. So we will verify our votes here, and I will get back to you after the meeting as to the exact number of whether or
And
not.
what is the legal reason for the denial?
From what my understanding is, it's been safety concerns.
Okay. There's not been any criminal activity there for quite some time, so, you know. So who's going to appear at the License Review Board hearing to explain this?
Your NPU-Y chairperson will, and most likely your public safety chairperson will be there as well.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. And I'll get back to you to make sure that our voting eligibility is correct on this poll. All right, thank you everyone for voting. We will go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which we first have is going to be our elections. So these are our NPU-Y officer positions. This is for 2024. So at this time, I will actually abdicate my position since I am running for officer again for chairperson. So we will hand over the meeting to our city planner for this portion of the meeting. Elizabeth Clappin, are you still on?
I am, yes. Good evening.
All right, I'm going to make you host so that you are able to launch the poll.
Thank you. Am I creating the polls, just to be clear?
There is one poll created for Slate, but I can change them as we go through.
That answers my question. Thank you. Excellent. So prior to actually taking the vote, I am going to clarify and I'm going to read to you all of the voting criteria regarding election of members. So if you will give me just a second. So for NPU-Y nominations, we will tonight be voting for elected officer positions. There are 7 elected officers for NPU-Y: chairperson, vice chairperson, secretary, assistant secretary for membership, treasurer, parliamentarian, and sergeant at arms. The criteria in order to vote in tonight's election is that you must be 18 years of age or older, possess a primary place of residence within the boundaries of NPU-Y, or be a representative that owns a non-residential property or has a place of business within the boundaries of NPU-Y, and have attended 3 meetings within the prior period of 12 months. The criteria to be an eligible executive officer are as follows. You must have attended 4 meetings within the current 12-month period, have not exceeded 4 consecutive terms, and lastly, possess a primary place of residence within the boundaries of NPU-Y. In terms of voting, the regulations are as follows. No more than 1 officer shall be elected from members of the same family or household, nor shall any member hold more than 1 office at any time. 2, the current chairperson shall abdicate his or her position to the assigned NPU-Y planner from the city's Bureau of Planning, and he or she shall preside over the election of the new officers, which is the position I am serving this evening. 3rd, nominations for officers shall be taken from the floor and/or from an ad hoc nominating committee. The winner of the election for each office shall be the person who receives the highest number of votes of eligible members of the general constituency of NPU-Y. And lastly, the term of each officer commences immediately upon the certification of the election results by the presiding officer. Are there any questions about the rules and regulations as listed? Yes, Paula Cooper Smith, you have the floor.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. I just want to clarify for the record, we are not certain tonight who is eligible to vote.
The eligibility has been emailed out to everybody. It's also in the chat. Anybody that is on the list that is that is highlighted or on the list at all is eligible to vote. Anybody that is highlighted is only eligible to vote, not run.
And that is in the chat right now.
It is in the chat. It was also emailed out multiple times over the last month and text messaged.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the clarification. Madam Chair, do you have the dates of the email, or I would say that if there is any concern at this time, that you would check the list that is available to you right now.
I would have to go into our application that we use that sends that information out.
Paula, did you have another question, or have you just not put your hand down? I'm going to take that as a no. Is everyone able to access the list in the chat now? Heather Graybill?
Just to clarify, does the list shared tonight reflect those in attendance tonight, or is that prior to this evening? I didn't receive texts or emails with the file.
That was prior to this evening. So that was to show that if you were attending this meeting tonight, then if it said number 2, then it would be number 3. It did not reflect November of last year. So it was all from December on. So that way any number for November would be just added to it.
Thank you. Are there additional questions, or is there anyone who still does not have access to the list? At this time,
you have one more raised.
Oh, we have one more. Oh, sorry, apologies. Shantae Robinson, you have the floor.
Yes, hello. I don't see my name on the list, and I have attended quite a few meetings within the past year.
Give me one moment to pull up our online list.
while we're doing that, Bob Morris, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just really quick question. I'm assuming that if there are two of us, we can put a name in the chat.
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, Madam Presider, just kind of reiterate on what Bob said. You may want to make that announcement more preeminent, where there are other individuals that are sharing a screen, but not necessarily showing up as so there you are.
Shante, I only have one meeting for this year of February listed, unless you were on a phone call that was from the top. So this would be your second meeting this year.
Couldn't find the mute button. Let's see. I have to check to see which ones. There is another one that I attended, and it could have been through a phone number, but it's not listed up there in the chat. But I don't want to hold up too much time, so I'll make sure I just the records.
Absolutely.
We have a question in the chat. I'm assuming in that case you have only listed, from what I can see, those who have attended 2 meetings, and this would be their third, correct? Not
Correct.
single meeting attendees?
Correct.
Are there additional questions?
Am I understanding there's provisional allowance of those individuals who are serving 3 meetings with that to be verified later? Is that what I'm hearing?
In that case, all voting would need to be verified regardless.
I believe that's the intention, period.
Yeah, once we go through the voting matters, the results will be coordinated against the recorded voter eligibility. If there is discrepancies such as Sante, we would have to do a little more digging into that, because this list is based off of the chat and participation reports from DCP. I do apologize. I do know we use a system that does our automated, so it's scheduled emails. So I'm not sure if they were not released. I do think I received one of them, but I don't check those, so I'll have to look. However, we can go through those participation reports. However, that would be something that would take more substantial time than to be able to give that information back during this meeting.
In regards to that, we do file an official voting report at the end of every NPU meeting.
Yes, there is a participation report, which is sent from DCP to the chair email, which is actually the secretary NPU-Y@gmail.com, and it was then updated into our voting eligibility tracking sheet.
Madam Chair, may I offer as well, Elizabeth, sometimes the phone log sometimes has to be married against the participants as well.
Hence the multiple phone numbers on top that do not have individuals next to them.
Which in that case, the phone numbers could still be used to verify voting eligibility.
Correct.
Yes.
Understood. Do we have additional questions at this time? Shante, did you have another question, or did you just have your hand up still?
Oh, let me go ahead and load it.
All right. So the way that we'll proceed from here is I will read the current slate of nominations. If there is any additional candidate that you wish to call for a nomination of from the floor, we will address that afterwards. So I'm going to start by reading the current nominations. The current nomination for chairperson is Nicole Weinwasser.
Weisswasser.
Pronounce it for me, Nicole.
Weisswasser.
Weisswasser. Vice chairperson Gloria Hawkins Wynn. Secretary Paul McMurray. Assistant secretary for membership, there is not a current nomination. Treasurer Paul McMurray. Parliamentarian Dr. Rebecca Robinson, and Sergeant at Arms Robert Bob Morris.
So the question at hand would be, do we have any nominations from the floor or additional nominations from our nomination committee? I hear what we have no additional nominations at the time.
I hear none. At that point, given the current state of nominations, do I have a motion for a slate vote regarding the nominations as just enumerated? Oh, Devon Dixon, you have the floor.
It was a motion for
It's a motion?
yeah.
Do I have a
Second, Omar.
I do have a parliamentary matter. There is one member that is slated for 2 positions. Per the bylaws, you are only allowed to hold 1 position. So you would have to remove that person from one of those roles.
Devon Dixon, you have the floor. Oh, Jacob Mills, you have the floor.
I would just like to make a nomination. Sorry, I'm juggling a couple
Yes.
things.
Yes.
For treasurer, I would like to nominate Katie Womack. She's a certified CPA. I think she'd be a good fit. She is looks like has 2 attendants, but she's here tonight, so I think that might make her eligible. I'm not sure, but just wanted to put that out there so we don't have one person running for 2 positions.
Ms. Womack is not eligible to run. She has to have 4 meetings in order to be on. She's also not on the call this evening.
Gotcha. Okay.
That was actually what I was trying to verify. Thank you. Do I have any additional nominations to resolve the issue of Mr. McMurray running for 2 separate positions?
Madam, Ms. Clapton, I'm not sure what is your question, whether it.
Do I have an additional nomination as the nomination that was put forward is not eligible based on the criteria?
So the positions that we have that are filled based on our nominations would be chairperson, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, parliamentarian, and sergeant at arms. However, the secretary and treasurer are the same position, Gloria, or same person.
So yes, Paul McMurray is currently running for both positions, and given the criteria, he cannot be elected to both positions.
I understand that. So are you saying he has to choose? I'm just trying to figure out. What's.
Well, this is Paul McMurray. If someone would nominate, I was running for secretary because I thought we needed to change there. And if someone could just step forward and want to be nominated for secretary, I gladly accept treasurer. Okay, but you know, I wanted to have a different secretary. That's why I ran. And you know, well, let's. How about Devon? Would you want to be treasurer? You don't have to do a lot.
There's not a lot of money.
So I like to nominate Devon Dixon for treasurer. Okay. And has he attended 4 meetings?
Yes, Devon has attended.
Okay, Devon, I think it's something you can handle. Please say yes.
Hey, Paul, I appreciate it, but I respectfully decline.
You do have to remember that Devon is also a chair of a community association as well.
No, he's stepping down from that. I thought I said he was doing that one.
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Renard Sloan for the position of treasurer, if he would be so inclined. Or I think I should ask if he's eligible. I'm not sure if he's eligible to sit in the board.
He is eligible.
Yeah, I will have to decline too. I'm sorry, y'all.
Madam Chair, I believe Eric Morgan was in the House earlier. Not sure if he's still present, but I would like to ask Eric if he would consider the treasurer's role. Is Eric still present?
I do not see him still on the call.
How about Bob Morris's wife?
Suzanne.
Suzanne is unable to run.
Yeah,
with-
that's
with
the not
household.
Oh, we can't have two on the board at
in the same
time.
household.
All right.
Bob and Suzanne would have to move, one to the rental house, one to the house. And
Put me on. Oh, thank you, everybody. But yeah, we'd have, one of us would have to move out.
I'm sorry, I didn't think of that, you know. But she'd be excellent.
Motion to not cause divorce.
All right.
Madam Chair,
So, Devon, are you sure you can't do it? All you got, you just, there isn't a, I mean, you're mainly there because of your value in the executive meetings, that you have a lot to contribute. That's what I did, you know, and I just think you would be excellent at doing that.
Madam Chair, I may be out of order here. Is there not within the bylaws the capacity that the officer is not seated in those roles to for an appointment subsequent to this election night?
I would have to look into any appointments that would be made.
Again,
We can appoint.
this being
now
the,
there are
this being the designated election night, it seems like I'm sorry that I can even consider that as an issue, that there is some ability to fill those vacancies via appointment. I don't believe there would be a subsequent election just to fill that role.
How about Mr. Akbar?
I don't believe Ken has made enough meetings. I don't believe Ken has made enough meetings.
Right.
So there are other MPUs that do not fill those positions. If they are unable to get somebody in that role, we have reached out over the last few months in order to fill these positions. So, depending on, I know Leah's on here, if there's any additional guidance on this, is to fill the positions that are being already, somebody is nominated for, and to continue on with seeking the other positions and how to handle that.
Well, in particular, Madam Chair, there was a major change in the bylaws this year that would again give the treasurer the fiduciary responsibility that has kind of been relegated to others who had vendor relationships. So just kind of consider that in terms of how we go about that position.
Hi, good evening, Leah LaRue, Director of Neighborhood Planning for the City of Atlanta. I apologize for my tire. So what are the roles that y'all are not having candidates for?
Treasurer, and the secondary would be Assistant Secretary for Membership, but Treasurer seems to be the major challenge because the same candidate has been put forward for both Secretary and Treasurer.
Yeah, it's been my experience that, and we're actually going through a similar exercise in APAB. It is my experience that less is more, and that any MPUs that have difficulty filling slots usually have more slots than they need, usually have more officer positions than are necessary, either because of tradition or because we've always had these positions and no one wants to be the one to take it out of the bylaws. But my recommendation is to consider whether or not your MPU actually needs those roles. If it does not really truly need those roles, then you may want to consider amending your bylaws to remove those roles. And in the meantime, you can go ahead with the ones that you have candidates for tonight, and then do a subsequent election to fill those other positions.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
In that case, would we remediate this by removing Mr. McMurray as a candidate for treasurer and leave the position of treasurer open?
Yes.
I would leave that call up to Mr. McMurray. If he qualifies for both, I would just consider
No,
whichever one.
I think that's a good idea because I think the person that was suggested by Jacob Mills will be eligible by the next meeting. So that might be a good idea because we could fill it in December if the guy the woman, I'm sorry, he recommended is still, coming to the meetings. Could we do that?
Yes, that was what Ms. LaRue stated. So we would vote on the amended nominations with the position of treasurer left open, and that would be pushed to a future date.
All right, so we have that Jacob Mills person he nominated could be eligible in December. So that could work.
Troy, you have the floor.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on it as well. So this is the first time that it went vacant in probably years, but I think the bylaws state that the chairperson can appoint with ratification of the body. We have to confirm that, but in the past, what typically happens is if a seat goes vacant, the chairperson could appoint and then get it voted on by the body to ratify. Or we can just it's up to the chairperson discretion. Just so Chairperson Nicole, you probably can just do a re-election, or you can just say, hey, I appoint, but by the bylaws, you can probably appoint it as well if you wanted to. So it's up to your discretion on how you decide how you want to do it. Move forward.
Understood. Devon Dixon, you have the floor.
I was proposing a friendly amendment to the motion that's on the floor currently, just to reflect the conversation.
Understood. I still have two hands raised, so I'm gonna hold off on that just so I can, Gloria Hawkins.
Yes, yes, Madam Chair. I believe Troy is accurate. I don't believe there's any basis for a subsequent election. I had mentioned earlier, my understanding from either per Robert's Rules of Order or I'm not sure where exactly, but that those vacancies that remain could be filled with appointees of the chair based on ratification of the body, which brings it all back to a democratic process, I believe.
Understood. So with that understanding, it has been moved that we move forward with the slate vote with the amended nominations as such, where the nomination for secretary would be Paul McMurray, and there would be no candidate for either assistant secretary for membership or treasurer. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Second. Rebecca.
Thank you.
The poll has been updated.
The poll has been updated. All right, I have not done a poll before. Can you walk me through how to send the poll out to everyone?
So on the bottom of your screen, there should be a launch poll. It will be under, one moment.
I see polls, so just click on polls.
Yep. I don't see it anymore. So you should see polls, and then it will be the one labeled NPU-Y.
NPU-Y officer elections. Thank you.
Madam Chair, relegating mine to the chat again, is that correct?
Oh, you did not drop your, you can just put it in the chat, that's fine.
Okay.
You did, it's supposed to be taken off of co-host as well.
It'll leave the poll open for about another minute or so to let everyone get their votes in. Is there anyone else having issues voting at the moment? All right, ending the poll.
Elizabeth, you also know there are votes in the chat as well, right?
I'm looking at that right now.
Thanks.
Gloria, I didn't see a vote come through for you in the chat, or were you able to vote by the poll?
I sent it to NPU Zoom Room 5, which may have been to
You
Madam
actually sent it to me.
Gotcha.
Can you forward it to Elizabeth? I'm sorry.
Doesn't forward, I can't forward it that way.
So-
It just
So where were the others by chat being sent? I thought they were all being sent to Zoom Room 5.
I have one in the general chat.
So I'm gonna
send it
provide my,
to,
You can send it directly to me if you want to, Gloria.
okay, Elizabeth.
So the only vote I got in the general chat is Suzanne Morris. So if you sent it otherwise, could you please send it directly to Elizabeth Clappin? And that's Clappin with a C. And Nicole, unfortunately, I'm still not seeing anything.
for what,
I'm not seeing any direct messages come through.
Gloria?
I've sent 2 and they show that both went through. The last one, no, the first one's to 5, but the last one went through to you, Elizabeth. You see it?
I see right here. Yes, thank you. Any other? Okay. Thank you. I'm going to share the results. So we have a total of 23 yay in the poll plus 2, so a total of 25 in favor, 4 against, and 2 abstentions. So the motion passes.
And then
So
for
the poll doesn't accurately reflect the percentage because the poll says 23 versus 25.
Correct. Yes. So the final count is 25 with the 2 additional votes from the chat.
Which takes it over 80%. Is that correct?
Yes. It's because the percentage in there was 75, correct?
79.
79.
the
Sorry,
last
I
portion
closed it.
of this is for Ms. Clappin to review the information that is saved on Zoom for the poll. So she will download those and coordinate those against our voter eligibility as we continue to move forward with our meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Elizabeth, if you are able to hand back over the.
Yes, I was just trying to download the poll
once you're
before I
done.
did so.
Absolutely.
Sorry. And it is not letting me. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, I think I'm good. And so I'm sorry, I don't know how to switch back to you. Apologies.
So if you go to my name, you can, on the participation, you can click more and it should allow you to make me host.
think that should have worked.
Okay, so as our city planner goes through and reviews our eligibility, we do have a approval of the motion, so the slate vote will carry, and we will presume in the future as to filling the others roles or filling only one of the roles as treasurer. So let me put the agenda back on. Are there any questions about the election that's gone forward as of it stands?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sorry, I have too many things on my computer here. All right, so the next item on our agenda is going to be, we do not have any old, but we're still in voting matters, apologies. So we go back to our Board of Zoning Adjustment application, which is a BZA. This is for B23-153. It's a variance for setbacks. Do I have an applicant on the call? No, I believe they're not on. They did ask that they would be deferring back to the neighborhood. So it looks like they did not join in order to make that deferral. So we will go ahead and do a voluntary deferral on the application of B23-153, as they will be going to South Atlanta next month. Next item on the agenda is going to be Z23-22. This is an amendment to the ordinance on parking regulations.
I'm sorry for the interruption. I was having issues, but I am on for V-23153.
Okay, you have the floor.
This is a setback. Yes, we have not went to the neighborhood just yet, but I was advised by the planner to go ahead and come to you guys' meeting now so that they won't have to defer this. To explain in NPU-Y and then go before the neighborhood at their next meeting, which is 3 days, I think it's 3 days prior to the actual hearing. So this was a setback. The depth of the lot, it's at 1653 Burton. The depth of the lot is only 49.9 feet on one side, and the setback are 35 feet in front and 15 in rear. So that leaves us with no buildable area for this particular build without a variance. We're asking for a reduction in the front setback from 35 to 15 feet, and in the rear from 15 feet to 8 feet. And without that variance, we won't be able to, the lot is not buildable. We won't be able to build on the lot. We're building a home for a local nonprofit that's selling at affordability cost. And they're gonna need this setback in order for us to build on the lot. And that's it.
Okay, I'll open the floor for any questions for the applicant, or actually first, let me ask South Atlanta, Devon Dixon, if you have any comment from the community on the matter.
This is the neighborhood's first time seeing it, so I have no comments at this time.
Okay, any questions from the community?
Madam Chair.
Gloria, you have the floor.
Yeah, would you roll back to the exact location where you see the grid with all the streets on it exactly? Trying to get a bearing on where this is in South Atlanta. I thought you might.
There's a better picture, there's not. So this is their proposed sewer line. So I believe it's 31 is their lot.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no actual building on the lot currently, as they have shown. What I've showed above this is the lot as it exists currently. off of Burton Street. And then if you go down, this is the proposed build. So I do have a question on here. The applicant is asking for a 0 setback on the side yards. And if there was a reasonable number that we could amend the setback to, as 0 does put you onto your neighbor's property. And since you are not going to be building within a 0 setback, if we could do possibly a 3 to 4 foot setback amendment.
Madam Chair, that makes sense, because what you just said is otherwise they're going to be right on top of the adjacent property's lot. Is that correct?
Correct. And just to remind everybody, when you are building a property, building a house on a property within your boundaries, which is that dotted line here, that is where you're allowed to build the actual building. Your front porch is allowed to extend as long as it does not extend 10 feet beyond. You are also allowed to put your driveway within the side lots. So you are able to use this side area, just not for any buildable garage or home purposes. Javon Dixon, you have your hand raised.
I don't have any comments, but I do have a couple of questions.
Please do.
What's the square footage of the proposed build? First question. I heard it was for sale. What is the intentions? Is it for profit or for affordable housing, or what's the intentions of the sale? And then when the lot was acquired, did you know the lot was not buildable?
Okay, so for the first one, it actually, square footage, I'll have to get back with you on that. I can check and pull that up. I just had it up, but lost my computer system. That's how I ended up on this phone. Sorry about that. Second question was sale. So it's owned by a nonprofit. We don't own it. We're just the builders. So as far as selling, they're saying that they sell all of their homes are affordable. And as far as if they knew or not when they purchased this lot, that information I'm unsure of. Speaking with them and giving them this notice, to my knowledge, the way that they replied to me, they had no knowledge of how small this lot was when purchased.
Devon, do you have any additional questions?
Is it possible to get the owners of the lot to appear at the South Atlanta meeting?
I can try. I'll speak with Cynthia and see if she's able to get there.
All right, appreciate it.
And do remember that we are able to defer ZRBs and BZAs if the community chooses to. Gloria Hawkins-Wayne, you have the floor.
So yes, ma'am, this is a I'm asking it because I really can't see these two. Is this a non-traditional 70-foot frontage, 9,000 square foot lot, or seems substantially smaller? And if so, is this a new build or was something pre-existing?
So yes, ma'am, it is a new build, and yes, it is one of those smaller lots. It's not your average large lot that you may be used to. It is smaller. That's why we're asking for the setback. Otherwise, they won't be able to build anything on it.
Okay, maybe someone else can answer my questions. I didn't think that was permissible, but I guess this will be 101, but thanks. I'll listen up.
Jacob Mills, you have the floor.
Has the applicant reached out to the adjacent landowners and had a conversation? Those are always the most effective when it comes to setback reductions. I'm trying to figure out where Burton Street is. It's Burton, not Burroughs. Okay, that's part of it. But yeah, has the applicant reached out to the adjacent landowners and spoken with them about any issues they might have regarding the setback reductions?
That I'm unsure of. So that is handled by the nonprofit. So I would not know, but I will request that she attend the neighborhood meeting on December 4th to give you guys an update on whether or not she has spoke with, as a nonprofit, have spoke with the neighbors.
All right, and I'm gonna come back, but I did want to make a motion, but I want to let everybody ask their questions first. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Rebecca Robinson, you have the floor.
It's okay, Jacob, you can go ahead and make the motion. That's what I was about to do. Motion to defer until the applicant meets with South Atlanta and discusses setbacks with the neighbor.
I'll second that. Thank you, Rebecca.
No problem.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to defer the application until the applicant has met with the South Atlanta Civic League as well as met with the neighbors that are adjacent to the property. I will go ahead and.
Madam, quick question. That doesn't interfere with any pending hearings at ZRB or BZA for this.
The ZRB and BZA will amend their meeting dates based on any NPU change in their vote.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions before we launch the poll on the matter? All right, so we are launching the poll. This is to defer the application as it stands to the neighborhood. If you do have more than one person on the call, please place them in the chat. And please make sure that you have the additional name on there so we can make sure to count that towards our agenda application or eligibility of voters as well. All right, keep it open for just one more minute. All right, we are closing the poll. As the poll stands, there are 16 yes with 2 yes in the chat. So there's 18 yes with 2 no's. The motion carries to defer the applicant to the December meeting. So we look forward to seeing you here in December. And I know that we have already shared with you the information to meet with the South Atlanta Civic League, and we will make sure to relay the information for your CRB hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda is the amended Z23-22. I'll go ahead and place this on the screen as well. This is amending our no parking setbacks. Or sorry, no parking, minimum parking requirements. As you see here, there is our ordinance that was already placed for the minimum parking. The changes that were made are towards the bottom. They are the underlined and crossed off section, the underlined of minimum parking, with the exception of the minimum parking requirements applicable to commercial food preparation, delivery-based commercial kitchens, and eating and drinking establishments, which shall be determined by the overlay zoning. There will be no minimum parking requirements within the BeltLine overlay district. That was added to the amendment. To remove was the number of off-street parking spaces required shall be as followed for residential use determined by the underlying zoning and any applicable provisions of section 1628.014, but not more than 1 space per dwelling units. They also removed for non-residential use determined by the underlying zoning and any applicable provisions of section 1628.014. And there was a few other adjustments here towards the bottom where the requirements were taken out, and it is determined by underlying zonings for non-residential use. Before I open the floor for any questions, our zoning committee, have you been able to review this any further since our zoning meeting? That is
Jacob, please feel free to jump in here. But we did talk about it in the zoning committee meeting. It appeared to us that this was this was actually a stroke of reasonability in terms of, since the earlier BeltLine parking changes had essentially eliminated the minimums across the BeltLine overlay district. This particular ordinance seems to try to amend some of that by recognizing that the establishments that are mentioned there, food delivery, food preparations, et cetera, i.e. restaurants and similar kind of facilities, need to have a minimum amount of parking, and this just reiterates that they need to have the standard amount of parking that was already in the regulations. So from the zoning committee standpoint, we thought this was probably a good idea. Please, other members, please chime in.
Jacob Mills, did you have any comment on that as well? Before we go to raised hands.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Well, I apologize. I'm like I said, I'm bouncing around. Did you ask me if I had any comments regarding this?
Yes, as zoning chair, co-chair.
I have not. I'll be honest. I have not read through this. I do know that parking restrictions and parking requirements minimize, and minimizing those requirements is something that we're going to run into and face. We already have a lot of these challenges right now. I was going to abstain from this vote this evening, but I do know that parking is going to become a major factor as we get more developments. But if we keep with the idea in the motion of walkable communities, we need to be looking at parking for other types of vehicles as well, and transportation, scooters, motor scooters, skateboards, whatever people want to ride, other than vehicular traffic. So that's something that I know is in our comprehensive development plan in Chosewood Park is accessibility, walkability, and safe pedestrian pathways. A lot of times, and you'll see this from developers like we just saw, where they try to maximize what they can make of the space, and requesting those setbacks be, that tends to be where we lose the ability for sidewalks, additional parking for alternative vehicles, and things of that nature. So I know that wasn't really a good breakdown of this particular V23-22, and I apologize for being ignorant to this one. And I was going to abstain from this vote. So that's my comment.
Thank you. I'll open the floor now to questions from the floor. Gloria Hawkins, you have your hands raised.
Kind of a question statement, I guess, what piggybacking on what Bob said. Bob is calling this legislation more reasonable. And perhaps it is, but I think the whole theory of diminishing minimum parking requirements to the city, and particularly the BeltLine overlay, from what I've learned, seems to be misguided. And it's misguided because apparently there's no mandate for the developers in these residential commercial bills, whereby the belief is there's going to be enough commercial where people won't need a vehicle, where they will, again, they will be walkable, livable, green. Turns out, not just in our southern quadrant, but I've been told up in the northwest quadrant, there is the build without the commensurate commercial, which means people are going to jump in their cars, et cetera. So my theory is that I think much of this is misguided. And again, the building we have right there in front of the prison, right there, Park in McDonough, what is it, 102 units with only 50 parking spaces? I know Christine Sanchez lives along Park Avenue, and they're just horrified of the inundation of vehicles on the street and just the congestion of vehicles having to park. So I don't know. I don't know. I think a lot of this, my understanding is this no minimum parking requirements inure mainly to the developers because concrete is so expensive. Those are all things I'm hearing. So I'm still a neophyte trying to figure out where truth lies.
Thank you. Paul McMurray, you have the floor. Paul McMurray, you're still muted.
Yes, I would, I guess we have to support it because at least it's a step forward. But it still doesn't really address the fact that the BeltLine is brain dead. They assume that they have created a walkable environment when they have not. And it is very much shown that when we have like on Milton Avenue all the way up to McDonough, down Boulevard and Inglewood, where we have massive amounts of, units being built, we have no real presence of actual commercial development. So as a result, the neighborhoods are not walkable. So it's a lie to say we can waive minimum parking restrictions. We can't do that. And the other part is, if you had a development where you didn't need the minimum requirement, the developer was always able to go to the BZA, or the Board of Zoning Adjustment, and make a parking adjustment. So there was no reason to pass this legislation. It's only to let the BeltLine pretend they are providing the type of walkable infrastructure that they put in their flyers, but don't really put on the street. That's all I got to say on that.
Thank you. Since we'll go to Rebecca Robinson first, and then we'll go back to Jacob Mills and Bob Morris.
I was just gonna motion to approve. But I know there's other comments. I didn't see the hands earlier.
That's okay. The motion is on the floor to approve the ordinance. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, can we hear from the other speakers, Bob and Jacob, before?
We can. The motion will drop. Jacob Mills, you have the floor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the Complete Street Boulevard project meeting was held last week on Thursday evening, and I brought up the matter because this is something that we continue to run into. It's the Atlanta DOT's responsibility and GDOT's responsibility to help protect us. The developers, are taking advantage of an over-incentivized area that the city put together, really no fault of their own. They just over-incentivized a certain type of development. And legislation, after all of the navigating through between the SAP hearings, talking to different council members, speaking with other city departments, the legislation is something that we need. And without that legislation, we do not give the ability to these departments to deny or approve based on what it shouldn't just be a recommendation. It's in our comprehensive development plan. It should be followed. So, the SAP process is broken, and this is one step where writing these types of legislation, it does allow for the city departments to be able to utilize this. And just to throw this out there to Paul's narrative, yes, you are 100% correct. If you do not have commercial space within the community, it does not become a walkable community. And which is why we push so hard on what Gloria had just mentioned regarding, those developments that were on Park and McDonough. Same developer. This was a commercial area. It was labeled a commercial. It was during a mass rezoning that it was changed, and there was conditions put on the site, and it allowed for the developer to follow those conditions and put up essentially there's 211 units with about 150 total parking spaces. In a commercial corridor. So intended use, it goes back to what I was saying, without these types of legislation. And like I said, I haven't completely read through this and really understand it. So I'm going to fall to Bob, because I know that, Bob, this is something you brought up, at the SAP hearings when we were up there speaking in opposition for the ones that were at McDonough. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But
Yes.
Bob Morris, you have the floor.
Yeah, I guess just to put a fine point on it, I don't know if brain dead, to Paul's technical term, is exactly what I'd use for the BeltLine, but they are across odds. I think we are all in violent agreement that the minimum parking requirements are designed for walkable communities, of which we have none. And so it is a bit of a pie in the sky kind of an idea at this point. However, to put a point on this particular matter, what this is doing is this is actually requiring some additional parking, whereas the previous legislation basically did away with all of that parking. This is at least a step in the right direction of recognizing that, I guess, gee, if we're going to have a big restaurant, we probably ought to require them to have some parking. Why they didn't apply that same logic and reasoning to apartment complexes where people have to live, it's legislation, guys, and at this point, we don't have a leg to stand on. We can't fix it. But that's how I see this one.
Suzanne, hi. I'm going to piggyback. I agree. We need to put some pressure on the city, because commercial doesn't mean where people get jobs. You can walk to a restaurant, you walk to a shop, but people need cars. Most people need cars to go to work, and there is no public transportation in this area for them to go to work. So I think that's what we need to pressure the city on. I agree with Bob. At this point, we have our hands tied on this one. They outsmarted us. The city made a mistake. It's better than what we got in the past. It's not better than what we could have, but moving in the future, we got to really make the urban planners understand that commercial is not the same as where people go for jobs, and that's what's important to keep the neighborhood alive.
Thank you. And I do agree that as we move forward with these type of amendments to the minimum requirements, that these minimum required parking should be only to adjacent to the BeltLine and not the whole BeltLine overlay, because that BeltLine overlay does fall back into neighborhoods that would require to have parking, especially if they're going to have multifamily use. Next up, I have Rebecca Robinson.
Yes, I'll motion again to approve.
All right, the motion on the floor is to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to approve and seconded. I will launch the poll. So again, if you are unable to vote here, please place it in the chat, or if you have multiple members on your call, please place those in the chat as well. I do hope that as the city continues moving forward with these type of minimum parking for the BeltLine overlay, that more amendments like these come up, so that way we can dictate a little bit clearer as to walkability and connectivity within these BeltLine overlays, especially in areas that do need parking, because a lot of our members do not have transportation or public transportation access, especially on the south side. Right, and we'll go ahead and close the vote. So I have 12 yes in the vote in the poll, 1 yes in the chat. That makes 13 yes, 1 no, 4 abstentions in the chat, and 1 abstention in the, or sorry, 4 abstentions in the poll, 1 abstention in the chat. So that is 5. So you have 13 yes, 1 no, and 5 abstention. So the motion carries to approve. Thank you, everybody. I would like to motion to extend the meeting by 15 minutes. We do not have much more on our agenda, so hopefully we can get through this in 15.
Second.
Are there any in opposition to the additional 15 minutes? All right, as I hear none, we will go ahead and move on. Our next item on our agenda is going to be our it is a non-voting matter. However, it is going to be something that we are going to quickly discuss, and that is for review. In Chosa Park, there is an application that is dividing 1 lot into 2 R4 lots. This is a much larger lot that is traditionally to hold more of a larger home on it, based on their requirement or their builder wanting to do 2 smaller homes. They are confiding with a traditional R4 lot still when they do their amendment. The information, if you were to open this, in your own time that would explain the division. Our zoning committee was able to discuss this, as well as the applicant did meet with the Neighborhood Association of Chosen Park, and they were approved for support from the community. Are there any questions on the matter? Or would you like it to be shared on the screen?
Just quick question. What size are the lots now?
I'll be happy to share the plat if you would like.
Absolutely.
I'm the applicant, Nina Gentry.
Perfect. Let me go ahead and stop sharing and you can have the screen.
Okay, it's not popping up, so let me go back. I don't know why. I've got it pulled up already. Oh, for some reason it's not there. Give me just a moment.
This is Jacob. I'm glad you're here and I don't have to do this. So thank you for even been doing this. This is great. I appreciate it.
No, that's quite all right. I anticipated needing to present.
Hi, Nina, a long time since you've been to NPU-Y.
It has been.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's try this again. There we go. Okay, this is a single lot. It's zoned R4A. It has a little more than 100 feet of frontage, about 104 feet. And we're just proposing to create 2 lots for 2 new single-family homes. That's basically it. It's a minor subdivision, which means that the construction of sidewalks that are required and the construction or connection to the sewer will occur during the building permit process for the homes. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. And before we go to questions, as the community did meet with them, they are planning to build 2 single-family homes, which does follow the CDP and the master plan for the community.
And one other note, if I may, based on the subdivision ordinance, you're not allowed to request variances for up to 1 year when a subdivision is created, because you're expected to create conforming lots, which these 2 lots would be.
Thank you so much for that clarification. Are there any questions for our applicant? Again, this is not a voting matter. This is just for comment and review. Jacob Mills.
It's not a question. I just want to go back to the last conversation. Walkability, sidewalks being installed where there are no sidewalks. This is directly next to the Empire development that has sidewalks. So this is how we get this with new developments that do these types of amenities for the neighborhood. So thank you. I know you guys are required to do this now, Nina, but these are the that we appreciate as the neighborhood, installing these sidewalks for pedestrian pathways.
Of course.
Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Nina. I appreciate you being on the call. We look forward to
All right, thank you all. Have a good evening.
You too. All right, next on our agenda, we move to old business, which we do not have any, and then we go to our new business. DCP has requested a potential adjustment to our bylaws based on our elections. Traditionally, we have our city planner manage our elections. They have requested that our city planners be less hands-on and that we adjust this to be for our nominations chair to handle. The adjustment would be to change for the current chairperson shall abdicate his or her position to the NPU-Y nominations committee chairperson, who shall preside over the elections of the new officers. Additionally, there would be, in order to make this nonpartisan, the nominations chairperson shall be voted in to their role prior to September with the majority +1 vote. We will not be voting on it this month. This is to review and discuss to be placed on our December meeting so it can be put into the 2024 bylaws. So I would like to open the floor for any questions, comments. If you have any thought process on this that you feel needs to be expressed, please do so.
Madam Chair.
Yes, you have the floor.
Yes, seems like the part 3.1-B is currently the way we operate. And it just seems like the latter part of that section only extends the length of time that the nomination committee is in panel. Is that a pretty clear now?
So currently 3.1-B advocates to the city planner. Since the GCP does not want the city planner as hands-on while they're fully capable, it just takes away from their role as city planner. So this would have the nomination committee chair facilitate the elections. Since the nomination committee chair would not be anybody running, we would have them make sure that they're voted in by a true vote and not by the chair placing that committee chairperson. That way we can make sure everybody in the community is clear on who will be facilitating this meeting.
I guess the point is that's how we did it tonight. And I think at least I thought in times past, that's pretty much how we've operated. We're just putting it in, codifying it in the law.
Well, tonight we abdicated to the city planner. So Elizabeth Coffin is our city planner. We abdicated to her and she facilitated elections. So moving forward, DCP would like for us to abdicate to the nominations committee chair, which is a member of our community.
Totally opposite of what I said. Now it is the NOMCOM chair versus the city. Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Although the ordinance says if it's not completed in November, December election would then require city planning. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks.
Are there any questions about this as we would place this on our voting matters for December? All right, as I see none, if there are any comments or questions about it, please make sure you email us at secretary@npuy.com. You can also attend our executive board meetings, which are held on the Wednesday, which is 10 days prior to our NPU-Y meeting, and those are on our NPU-Y calendar. Going into announcements, we do have a runoff election for our Board of Education. Yes, Gloria, do you have additional information on that to share?
Yes, ma'am. It's the 6th of December. I don't know whether or not it will be only at certain polling places, but I think it's open up to the residential, the community polling places, but it's the 6th. And of course, there's a runoff between candidates who will affect directly schools at Carver as well as South Atlanta cluster. So we're in again the early turnout was de minimis because it was kind of an offbeat election. But again, we're praying that everybody will come out because much of leadership will determine the direction of a lot of things that vis-a-vis APS. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. But December 6th is the election day. I think it's always on a Tuesday.
Thank you. Additionally, some of the issues that came up during voting for this election was that the voting poll location in NPU-Y's area was closed. So please make sure to look up that location as it's, I did not have it in the report.
I'd like to say something about that.
You have the floor.
The election is December 5th. It's not
Sorry.
December.
Sorry.
And early voting will be November 25th to December 1st. And as Nicole indicated, no early voting area was available in the southeast or southwest quadrant. The closest place probably to vote for most people is the Ponce Library for the early voting. I know in Shozer Park, we're voting on the election day, December 5th, at the Thomasville Rec Center. So I would suggest everybody pay attention to where your polling place is.
And can I add to that Kim Schofield is our state senator, I believe. She lives in the southeast quadrant and is well aware of that disconnect, that there were no that all of the local early voting precincts were removed from the southeast quadrant. And of course, Ponce, I think the closest one is the library at Ponce, which is up in the northwest corridor. And I think folks find it suspect that would happen.
The reason why it's especially suspect in a District 7 school district is because the incumbent lives in the north part almost next to the Ponce Library. And the challenger lives right near Benteen Elementary. So it's very much suspect.
Yeah. If you will, Madam Chair, take a note of the reference in the chat. Kim Schofield is a representative of the Southeast Choir. I wasn't exactly what, but I just heard from Ms. Stovall that the point is many elected officials on whatever level can chime in. I think the strength in numbers in terms of whether or not there's a problem.
Thank you. Do we have any other announcements from our community members?
Yes, ma'am. Morehouse School of Medicine, we may want to defer to our education chair, our pending prior education chair. There's a link sent to Secretary NPU-Y. Tomorrow morning, Zoom conference will provide the data that these first year students have derived from, I would say there's some
I'm sorry, everybody. It looks like I may be having some technical difficulties.
Oh, I think she froze.
There you go. Sorry,
Yeah.
everybody froze on me for a moment.
But the thrust of it is Morehouse, if you will provide or can drop in the chat the link to tomorrow's Zoom conferencing that's going to reveal the findings of these first year students' research. They interviewed a lot of community leaders, but it goes back to, again, Morehouse and its attempt to overwhelmingly figure out what the disparities are and be a resolution for overcoming some of the health disparities in certain communities.
Thank you.
If you will provide the link.
Yeah, I'll pull that up right now. Monique Nunley, you have the floor.
Hey everybody. So happy that it's almost Thanksgiving and we'll eat good food soon. I am an educator at the new school, which is a local independent school in East Atlanta. And we've been working on food access in food deserts and specifically looking at Southeast Atlanta, which is our neighborhood, to better understand how do we engage with food access. We've talked with some of the providers in the neighborhood. We've talked to community members. Thank you to people who've joined and shared their stories with my students. Students will be presenting on December 6th at the Ali Event Center at 1:30 p.m. It'll be a brief presentation of about an hour, and students will share what they learned about the community. And they've spoken with city council members who we're inviting to learn more and see what are next steps for food access of quality food in our neighborhood. So if you're able to come, please just send me a message. I also will put the flyer in the chat. But it's December 6th, Wednesday at 1:30. Thanks.
Thank you. Tremaine, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. I want to thank you all to NPU. You all do a good job, I think, of keeping us all informed and bringing everyone together. So I appreciate that. I know it's probably a thankless job, so we appreciate you. Yes, so I wanted to find out, how do we all work together as an NPU? Because like even the situation with the gas stations, right? We have a lot of different things going on, but as it relates to development, we have a lot of undeveloped property. I believe people will continue to show interest in this area with the BeltLine, doing more work through this area. And so how can we all work together to make sure we don't have like a fifth gas station at the same corner, or another liquor store and 4 gas stations, or, how do we work together as a community to kind of make sure that that doesn't continue to happen? Because we probably have, easily 40 acres, 50 acres that, developers could come by and want to develop in our community, if not much more. So how do we work together?
Yeah, so when it comes to businesses and communities, that really falls back to the neighborhoods and how they like to work with the developers and express what their community needs and wants as they come to the community to discuss potential builds. Unfortunately, though, we are very limited as to how we can regulate what the city allows for a developer to purchase and build on properties. There could be additional legislation put forth to limit how many gas stations are within distance from each other, and there are other legislation in other communities that are similar to that, where they are not allowed within 2,000 feet, I believe, and that's more on the north side of the city. So that would be something that's a legislative matter in order to really push if we want to have something legal to stand back on. But we can certainly discuss those type of things in our executive board meeting or in our zoning committee meetings. If you'd like to attend the zoning committee meeting on this, the last Wednesday of the month, and we can see how we can reach out to our city council members to assist us with that.
Well, thank you for that. And maybe, the other thing is, because I don't know what the answer is, but, you all have some influence and visibility. And so, if you're encouraging members from our NPU or neighboring NPUs to be at zoning meetings or meetings that you all know are critical based on your close contact with all of these different issues, we'd love to hear from you too. Not that that's a requirement of you, but I think a lot of us, even myself, I live in a community, and I would say I am in the industry, right? But ultimately, you all have a lot of firsthand knowledge about the developer plans for this part of town and this NPU. So if as you get messages about, people want to come before the NPU, if there's any more communication you can provide and encourage us to go to more important meetings, I would say please do that, because I even miss those opportunities. And so I would benefit from knowing more about, how we can, make sure that we don't get too many things we don't want on this side of town. But
Absolutely.
thank you.
And
I
we
do
do
want to
try.
say thank you.
Thank you. And we do appreciate the thank you. We do try to make sure that those meetings are on our calendar. So if you go to NPU-Y.org, any of our committee meetings, we do try to place on the calendar there, which you can subscribe to the calendar and put them in your personal Google Calendar or Apple Calendar. If on the bottom right-hand side, there's a plus Google Calendar to add, so that way you keep up to date on them. Unfortunately, we don't actually get too much information prior to the communities receiving them, but we do try to share any information that we do receive, either in these meetings or through emails. So we'll make sure to keep everybody informed as these types of developments come in, and so that way we're getting most of our communication and input is from the community that it resides in.
Okay, that's great. Thanks so much. I appreciate y'all again. Y'all have a happy holiday.
Thank you too. Jacob Mills.
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of piggyback on Mr. Tremaine there, Mr. Thomas. The best way that we can work together is having a louder voice, more people, more attendance. I was a little disappointed that we only had about 4 or 5 residents for the Complete Street Boulevard project. The rest of it was represented by Grant Park. And one thing that we can do, and what we kind of missed here in Chosewood, because we were relying on the comprehensive development plan and not understanding how the process for special administration permits work, education is part of it. And I know coming to the meetings can be a burden. Everybody has lives, so it makes it difficult to get out and get to all the meetings. But if there's stuff that you can do on your own time, I would recommend looking into NPU-Y or NPU University. That is a great place to get educated on a lot of these topics, to learn about the acronyms, to learn about the processes and the procedures and how these things operate. But showing up to the committee meetings and the zoning meetings and these types of meetings is a great step with it as well. And moving forward, being proactive as a community and picking up some of these locations and putting restrictions and conditions on these types of properties allows us to have a little bit more of a control as a community when it comes to what the developers can and cannot do at these particular locations. And I will say that the Department of City Planning and City Council is receptive to this idea. just because they understand the burden that we have here, in the, southeast side, in the southeast quadrant. There's a lot of available land. And when they put this legislation, before, I don't think they anticipated the amount of developers that would pick up on the opportunity tax zone, the BeltLine overlay, and properties that are already zoned with conditions that run concurrent with what's profitable for them and not for the community. So we appreciate you coming out, Mr. Thomas, and I'll just say that moving forward, more is better. So everybody that's still here at the meeting, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, have these conversations out in the street so that we can, have a collective mind here and come up with solutions so that we don't end up with a lot of problems.
Madam Chair, I believe we're over the extended time already. Or should I motion to extend the meeting another 10 minutes?
Yes, we can motion for 10 more minutes since we are just on the last portion. So I'll go ahead and motion to extend the meeting for 10 minutes.
Madam Chair, Gloria, second.
Okay, anybody in opposition? All right, we'll extend the meeting for 10 more minutes. Gloria Hawkins-Wynn.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to Mr. Thomas, what a prolific voice. Again, I believe the chair downloaded in the chat ordinance 23-0-1346, which was enacted within the last 6 months. But the second whereas clause speaks specifically to these convenience stores. And it says the city of Atlanta declares and finds that a significant number of violent crimes occur at convenience stores. I think what you heard, if you were on board earlier, that the pushback in Lakewood Heights in particular by many, I won't say all, is the fact that there's only 1,200 people that live in that community. We have 4, 5 convenience stores open 24/7, and it's given us a reputation nationally as one of the 10 most dangerous communities in America. So that is the pushback as to why so many are needed, why 24/7, and it grows and it comports specifically with this ordinance that says, let's do a little more to regulate them. And I think that's where we all are. We want everyone to have fair access and due process is entitled to, the applicants, the owners, the proprietors, but it's a balance against the needs and the safety of the community. So again, check out that ordinance. And I think it is a movement to do more regulation around, to create more regulation around these venues that are a problem, are a safety concern, shall I say, for many communities.
All right, last one, and then we'll move on to Kimberly Brooks. Do you have the floor?
Yeah, I do. The question is, as I was listening to the individual speak about the concerns, I would definitely say representation, because the NPU was originally designed for representation. But the question is I invited a few people to this meeting tonight, but it appears that the information that's online for NPU-Y, it's different information. And also I wanted to better understand whether, I guess, this body has ruled in some sense, maybe before I started attending the meetings, whether to have in-person or hybrid meetings for people that have technical difficulties that cannot, I guess, access these meetings, what those stipulations were in regards to getting more representation or people here in the community that may have barriers. What can we do, or what are the options to make an accommodation for those individuals?
Yeah, we have opened up the option to do hybrid previously, and it was consistently moved to continue with online only. However, we can revisit this at our next executive board meeting, as we absolutely want to have more people joining our meetings. If whatever information that is incorrect online, please just make sure to let me know, and that way we can get our executive board to update that. We do try to make sure it's up to date on there, but I know that sometimes information isn't always correct up on the website. So errors do happen. So we need to be aware of them, and we'll make sure to double check if you're not able to get me that information. Thank you. All right, so we will move on. There are no presentations today. Before we go to our planners report, we're going to circle back on our elections. Elizabeth Coppin, and we're able to verify our voter eligibility.
I had at this point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that I was not able to verify. Two questions. First of all, does the list include those who attend the meeting together with two individuals on the same number?
The eligibility list or the report?
The eligibility list.
Eligibility list has each person separated. So if their
All
name,
right, so in that case, could I ask for a point of clarification because one of the votes in the chat just included a first name? So could I just get a verification on first and last name? I only have the first name Suzanne.
Suzanne Morris.
Suzanne Morris.
She is eligible to vote.
She was not on the list, and that's why I asked.
She is, or sorry,
Is she listed under
Otis?
Otis?
Otis, my apologies. They're same household though.
Excellent, thank you. So that verification. The second question I had was I had one individual who did not have a last name as well. Only listed under Chris, no last name, and it does not appear that they're still on the call.
Who was on earlier? I would not be able to look at that at the time. Give me one moment though to go back.
Could it be Chris McCord?
I'm just gonna look up which name added Chris.
It looked like Chris, and it was either an L or a 1421 was the email address.
Okay, give me one moment.
Elizabeth, can I ask whether whatever the anomalies are, would it change the outcome of the results?
They do not. No, Gloria. I just wanted to try to give you as accurate a percentage as I could.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And because there was only two that were really in question, at least in terms of verification, I wanted to make sure.
For emails, let's see who we might have. Do you know who added them in the chat? I'm not seeing the.
So this was not in the chat. This was in the poll.
If it's a Chris L, we do not have, they would not be eligible. I don't not see anybody listed that would be a Chris L.
Okay.
And I would generally say Chris McCord, his full name generally shows if he's on.
Correct. Chris
Understood.
McCord, Chris Smith, and Chris Yonkers, I always make sure to put theirs. This is most likely a new member.
Understood. So in that case, the final vote stands at 21 yay, 3 nay, 0 abstentions. So with an overall count of 87% in favor, 13% against. So
Thank
the
you.
motion still passes.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification. And we will review our open positions for December and place those on the vote.
And Madam Chair, can I ask for clarification in terms of submitting this for those who have been determined to be ineligible, or do those need to be submitted separately?
No, they are just removed from the voting list.
Excellent. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you,
All right.
Elizabeth. Thank you.
We will now hand it over to Elizabeth Clapham for our planners report.
Excellent. So looking at the planners report for January, couple of quick highlights. First, the 2024 Community Impact Grant Information Session will be held on Wednesday, December 13th from 6 to 7 p.m. via Zoom. Attendance at the session is required for either NPU chairs or project managers who are intending to apply for funding for community impact projects in 2024. If you are interested in additional information, you can reach out to Daniel Vasquez on the NPU team. I will be dropping all of that information in the chat. Secondly, the Atlanta City studio reopening, which was originally supposed to happen back in October, it has been postponed until further notice. Thirdly, with support from the National Park Service, the City of Atlanta and Historic Atlanta Incorporated have completed the Atlanta LGBTQ+ Historic Contact Statement and will present the findings to NPUs and neighborhood associations, taking steps to implement the recommendations and plan future events. To learn more and to access the study, a link will be included in the chat. And then lastly, NPU University is on hiatus for the rest of 2023. However, if you are interested in upcoming events, the 2024 NPU University course catalog is already going to be up at the beginning of the year. So after Christmas, if you need something to take up your time that first week of January when you're recovering from New Year's, you can check out what's going to be up and you can get prepared for the new offerings that are going to be available for the NPU University. And other than that, from the Department of City Planning, a very happy Thanksgiving to all who celebrate.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
All right, we have no other agenda items. I will motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any opposition? All right, as I see none, we will go ahead and close the meeting. I do appreciate everybody taking the additional time to stay on. I know this was a long meeting because we had many voting matters. So thank you so much and have a great holiday season.